Hello. I'd like to demonstrate to you how Jehovah's Witnesses misquote John 14:28, in order to then attempt to prove that Jesus Christ is not God. Here comes Elder Snotty Face, an elder from the local Kingdom Hall.
Hello Christine. I think that it's about time that I proved to you that Jesus Christ isn't God. He is not eternal. Jesus Christ was created.
Well, Elder Snotty Face, as I've told you many times before, as a man, I would agree that Jesus Christ is not God. So that, as a man, Jesus was created. And, as a man, he also lacks divine attributes, and is not eternal. Jesus Christ is one person, you see, but he has two different natures. He is both God and man, fully God and fully man. So, since his incarnation, we Trinitarians do not claim that Christ is simply God alone. He is both God and also man.
No. The Trinitarians claim that Jesus is co-equal to the Father. That means that you Trinitarians believe that Jesus has an equal amount of power to the Father.
Oh, Elder Snotty Face. You don't even understand what we Trinitarians believe. When we say that Christ is co-equal to the Father, we mean that he shares his Father's own nature. That is, the Father's being. So Christ, in his deity, by fully partaking in what the Father is the same single divine spirit as his Father. So when the Trinitarian creeds state that Christ is co-equal to the Father, we simply mean that Christ, being only begotten of his Father, shares his Father's very being. We do not mean that Christ is another separate God, who possesses his own separate power, which is equal to the Father's power. If we did believe that, then Christ would be a second God, who would then be equal in power to the first God, which is polytheism. That is, a belief in more than one God.
So you deny that Christ is co-equal to the Father.
Co-equal, as written in the 5th century creeds, means that the Son shares his Father's own nature. So the Son is equal in power to his own Father, because he shares his Father's very nature, which includes divine power. He must share this power, because he shares his Father's very being. That is his deity. The one follows naturally, as a consequence, from the other.
But how can God pray to God? At John 20:17, Jesus refers to the Father as my God. So how can God have a God?
Oh dear. That was a mighty quick change of subject, wasn't it? But, you haven't listened to me, have you, Elder Snotty Face? I never said that Jesus was God. Remember that I said that Christ is now both fully God and also fully man. So I would agree with you that God cannot pray to God. But Jesus Christ is not God. Instead, I said that he is both God and man, two natures in one single person. So as a man, the Father was his God, and as a man, he also prayed to his Father.
The Son is not equal to his Father, because the Father is greater, which means better than the Son. John 14:28 states, "My Father is greater than I, so they are not equal in power. The Father has more power than the Son. They do not each possess equal power to the other."
Okay, so now you've shifted the topic to John 14:28. So tell me, Elder Snotty Face, which Greek word is translated as greater at John 14:28?
The word is greater, which means better than. So the Father is better than the Son at John 14:28.
The Greek word which is translated as greater at both John 14:28 and also at John 14:12 is mesion. This word does not mean better than. It merely implies rank, or number, or extent. But when Jesus said that he was greater than Jonah at Matthew 12:31, and greater than Solomon at Matthew 12:32, he used a different Greek word, pleion, which means better than.
You're playing silly word games now.
Okay, but can we agree that the Greek word pleion, which is translated as greater than Jonah at Matthew 12:31, means better than, so that he, Jesus, was greater pleion than Solomon at Matthew 12:32, which actually means better than, so that Jesus is better than both Jonah and Solomon?
Well, I guess so.
So, pleion at Matthew 12:31 and 42 means better than. So Jesus is better than both Jonah and Solomon.
Okay, I agree. I guess.
Fine. Then the question needs to be asked is this. If the Greek word pleion means better than, then why didn't John quote Jesus using this word at John 14:28, saying, "My Father is pleion, that is better than I"?
I don't know.
Well, I do know why. The word mesion, which is used twice in John 14 at verses 12 and 28, just means greater in extent, position, rank or number, but it does not mean better than in nature.
You can't prove that.
Well, actually I can. We have already agreed that pleion means better than, and John doesn't quote Jesus as using this word pleion at John 14:28. That's my first point.
I see.
Now here is my second point. Many charismatics and Pentecostals will foolishly misquote John 14:12, which is the other verse in John chapter 14, which also uses the word mesion. Here we read Jesus saying to his disciples that they will do greater works than him. The word for greater is mesion. So these folks will claim that today, in the charismatic and Pentecostal churches, that they can perform miracles, which far outdo anything that Jesus ever did. Jesus did remarkable miracles, but they'll then claim that they do far more mighty and far more impressive miracles than he ever did. They are forced to make this claim because they wrongly assume that the Greek word mesion at John 14:12 means better than.
That's nonsense.
Yes, it is. But do you know why it's nonsense?
Go on.
The Greek word pleion, as we have already agreed, means better than. So if Jesus had wished to say that the apostles, whom he was talking to, would outperform him by doing far more impressive and far more spectacular miracles than him, then the apostle John would have quoted Jesus as using the word pleion and not mesion at John 14:12.
So what's your point?
John's use of the word mesion at John 14:12 completely destroys this charismatic argument. All that this word means is that after Jesus' ascension, that the apostles as a company would then perform more numerous miracles than Jesus ever did. Jesus was not saying that the apostles will outdo him by performing better and far more powerful and spectacular miracles, which he couldn't do. Do you see that?
Yes, it's obvious. Jesus was addressing his apostles at John 14 and not the modern charismatic church of the 21st century. Secondly, you've made an obvious point that the use of mesion and not pleion at John 14:12 points to the extent that is the number of the apostles' miracles and not to their quality. The apostles weren't going to do more mighty and powerful miracles than Jesus, but collectively they would do more miracles in terms of numbers than he ever did.
Fine, but if mesion refers to the extent and number of these miracles and not to their quality, then this Greek word must have exactly the same meaning at John 14:28.
Why?
Because a word which is used in the same context must have the same meaning. Yes?
Okay, I guess so.
Well, as mesion is used, rather than pleion, at both John 14:12 and 28, then neither verse is saying that the apostles' miracles or that the Father is better than Jesus. It just refers to number at John 14:12 and to status or position at John 14:28. So just as a general holds a higher rank than a major, but that general is not a better human being than the major, so too does the Father, during Jesus' time on earth, have a higher status or position than Jesus?
But how can Jesus be equal to his own Father and yet also be of a lower status than him?
Well, Philippians chapter 2, verses 6 to 8, explains that Jesus, according to verse 6, was eternally existing in God's form. This is why he was equal to God, because he was himself the very same being, that is the same God, whom the Father was. But he then became a servant, according to verse 7, by coming to this earth as a man, verse 8. So because Christ is one person, and not two persons, this single person, whom the Greek states was Haparkin, that is eternally existing in God's morphe, that is in God's form, took on a second nature, which was humanity, which was then added to his deity. Whilst at the same time Christ still remained one single person. He did not become two Jesus, one divine, and the other human. Philippians chapter 2 verse 8 then states that he humbled himself, so this is why his Father was greater than Christ at John 14:28.
No. Christ was never equal to the Father. Neither did he exist in God's form, and Jesus at John 14:28 states himself that his Father was better than him.
The word equal is used at Philippians 2:6, as well as also at John 5:18, in order to state that the Son is equal to his Father. Paul then explains that the basis for this equality is because the Son has eternally existed in God's form. This means that the Son's being, his essence or nature, is the same as the Father's being, essence or nature. In simple terms, as God himself, the Son is made up of the very same Spirit that the Father also is. The Son, who is equal to the Father, then chose to become a man, and also to become subject to his Father. So it is in this humble state the Father is of a higher rank, or position, than the Son.
I'm wasting my time with you. You are not open to Jehovah's truths. So I'm going. Goodbye, Christine.
Goodbye, Elder Snotty Face. Written by Robert Skinner.